Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Skeel, and I want to welcome you to this Facebook Live video. And I am doing a series of stories from the Sacred Ambition alums, those that have come to one of the last, or several actually, of the last three Sacred Ambition events that happens every August in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I want to share these stories because, when you go to an event, a 3-day event or a workshop or something like that, you leave inspired, you leave, really energized. You want to do a lot of things in your life or change a lot of things or implement a lot of things. And then what happens? It's really important to me that people that come to the Sacred Ambition event take the energy and the inspiration and the information and the ahas and the breakthroughs and the transformations and apply it to their lives. And fortunately, I have a lot of stories to tell about that because that's one of my intentions and one of the things that happens when you come to the Sacred Ambition event. Just want to say that the dates for this coming August event will be in the text somewhere around this video. So I'm doing a series of stories, and so this is story time. If you'd like to settle in and for about 10 minutes, last time I said it was 3 minutes. Well, that's not quite true. It's really more like 10 minutes. Hey, Grace. Hi, Sylvia. And come with me while I tell you about Bobbye and Bobbye's story. The name of her story is Co-Creating a Sacred Sanctuary. Bobbye is one of those people who knew all of her life that she was called to the inner, her own inner journey, her own inner exploration, and that she wanted to bring it out into the world in some way. She wanted to make it into something in the world. She said, I grappled with it in so many ways. My sacred calling was all about the inner, waking people up, increasing the level of consciousness in the world and in people, and inviting them to wake up to who they are as a soul and a divine, radiant being. Well, she tried a lot of things in the outer world and realized that the outer world was just not ready for what Bobbye wanted to bring forward. So she kept running into a wall, and it was very frustrating until she came to the Sacred Ambition event. And the first time she came was actually in 2015. She said, one of the most significant dramatic upgrades was connecting into the Sacred Ambition tribe. And what transpired for Bobbye and her husband, John, and by the way, he comes too, when they attended the first Sacred Ambition event. The Sacred Ambition event literally ignited a life-changing plate tectonic move, I love that, from Chicago to New Mexico. And it was that community and your teachings and honoring, recognizing, and appreciating the inner part of the journey that was so incredibly refreshing and resonant for me. So now Bobbye has taken what she received from the 2015 and the 2016, and actually she's coming back this year, she and John, and she said, I'm taking a stand for the life force energies of chi, of radiant wholeness, and inviting others to play, replenish, and surf the mystery as we birth the new story. Bobbye is one of those who really keyed in on the new story, which is something I talked a lot about and brought forward as well in A Day of Radical Loving, which is a midwinter one-day event that I do around Sacred Ambition. The new story is so important for our time. We are... what shall I say? We are being overwhelmed and bombarded at this time by a story that a lot of us do not want to live into. And so coming up with the new story, envisioning the new story, living into the new story, articulating it is so important, which is one of the things we do at the Sacred Ambition event. So, Bobbye goes on to talk about her own journey of awakening. I wanted her to tell a few stories from her life, and she goes on to tell a few stories about what really led her to really knowing that the inner work was where she wanted to put her energy. And now her inner work focuses around Qigong and studying many mystical paths. She says, so I'm dancing across the void without a net. That's okay. I'm surfing the mystery, which is another really beautiful, poetic way of the way that she invites others to come play with her, to come explore the mystery with her. And she also talks about building the communion within, which is another one of Bobbye's phrases, which I absolutely adore. She says, building community within is another of Bobbye's phrases, which then translates in her life with more flow, harmony, and grace. You know, once we are in an environment where who we deeply are is honored and seen and respected and celebrated, all manner of gifts and blessings begin to flow in our life. We give ourselves permission to do and be and have more of what we truly want. And we show up more from who we truly are. That is a journey. That is a process. And that's one of the things we do at the Sacred Ambition event, is really give you the space and time to do that, to discover that. Or if you already know it, to really up-level it, to claim even more of it, and then begin to bring it out in the world in whatever expression you want, whether or not that be a business or a practice or the way you want to show up in your community. Maybe it's a social activism. Maybe it's sacred activism. Maybe it's how you want to be in your marriage or your relationships or with your children or with your friends. So there's lots of different ways to bring forward a sacred calling and to live from sacred ambition. So she goes on to say, so Bobbye's sacred calling of champion the inner way now has a place and a voice and a belonging. And that's so, so important. So what is she doing today? Well, she is inviting others to come play with her with a palette where people can experience her approach. And she's also in a collaboration with a delicious team, she says. The wings are starting to unfold. And this is another way that sacred callings come forward. We follow it. We don't will it. We don't say, I will go do this and make it happen. We follow it, and it is an unfolding. It is like the wings that unfold around us. And trusting that inner wisdom, following that inner guidance, very, very important. Then I asked her about sacred action. And here's another one of Bobbye's very poetic phrases. We are among millions of fractal pivot points that reflect a facet of the new story. This story needs to be aired and given space. Everyone has their unique way of expressing this sacred action, including on the seen and the unseen levels. Beautifully put. So I also asked her, were there any challenges? And as she puts it, the more that she shows up, the more that she takes a step, the more that she does what she's called to do, that's what really unfurls, she said, the bridge across the void as she's creating it. And that, again, is a real key here. It's like we take a step. Sacred action is taking that compassion and putting it into our hands and making an action from it. And, of course, it's step by step, isn't it? It doesn't have to be a major leap, although sometimes we're called to do that. It can really be one step at a time. And to end, she says, we are building an invisible and invincible energetic infrastructure, that beautiful sacred sanctuary. I hope you've enjoyed Bobbye's stories. There are a lot more stories that I've shared from ordinary people who are doing extraordinary, ordinary things. Everyone approaches it in a different way. So you can go to my YouTube channel where all the other stories are. There'll be a link in the text around this Facebook Live. Thank you for being with me. And if you're watching it live or you watch it later, and blessings to you until next time.